Hello everyone. So today I wanted to talk about the rise of conservatism in our popular culture, especially with Gen Z and Gen Z women. There's been a lot of discourse about the presidential election for many reasons, and one of the talking points that I wanted to discuss today was all of the signs that have been popping up in the past few years that were kind of a warning or a signal of this conservative shift. Mostly because I've talked about a lot of these signs in previous videos. This video isn't going to be super heavy on the research just because I have gone in depth on a lot of these trends and topics I'm going to be discussing in this video. So this is more of like a kind of conversational debrief of the culture and the election. Thank you Milanote for sponsoring today's video. Milanote is a helpful online tool for planning creative projects. It is flexible, unstructured, and easy to use, allowing its users to create in whichever way they see fit. Its online canvas is designed to help you plan, brainstorm, and collaborate on your creative ideas. I spend a lot of time brainstorming, planning, and researching for my videos. The visual aspect of Milanote helps my process flow and stay organized. Milanote can help any type of creative through the process of their work, from filmmakers to writers to designers and more. There are over 100 built-in templates available for every type of creative project. For example, I use the mood board template. On my research board, I can organize all my video links, my article links, and topics all in one place. I used my mood board to visually brainstorm and organize all the images I used in my previous video. But like I said, Milanote has over 100 templates available for you, so let's say you're not so concerned about making video essays, but you are a filmmaker working on a short film, Milanote has got you covered. Milanote offers a couple different filmmaking related templates, one being the pre-filming template, which can help you organize all of the necessary logistics that go into filmmaking. There's a section for call sheets, dates, time, location, etc. So truly, Milanote offers so many different helpful templates for any kind of creative project. You can also share your work with your team to gather important feedback and collaborate in real time. Milanote is available for free with no limit, so sign up for a free Milanote account today using the link in the description. Now let's get back to the scheduled programming. Thank you. That being said, I kind of just want to get right into it. I think the most obvious trend that shows this shift in conservatism is the whole tradwife thing. I've made a whole video about tradwives and everything like that. Hello everyone. So today I wanted to talk about the rise of conservatism in our popular culture, especially with Gen Z and Gen Z women. There's been a lot of discourse about the presidential election for many reasons, and one of the talking points that I wanted to discuss today was all of the signs that have been popping up in the past few years that were kind of a warning or a signal of this conservative shift. Mostly because I've talked about a lot of these signs in previous videos. This video isn't going to be super heavy on the research just because I have gone in depth on a lot of these trends and topics I'm going to be discussing in this video. So this is more of like a kind of conversational debrief of the culture and the election. That being said, I kind of just want to get right into it. I think the most obvious trend that shows this shift in conservatism is the whole tradwife thing. I've made a whole video about tradwives and everything like that. And I think it's really interesting how willing and eager women were to hop on this trend, even though some of it was tongue-in-cheek, like people making jokes about Nara Smith and making goldfish from scratch or whatever. And it became this kind of aesthetic more than anything, but people were definitely embracing this lifestyle, this concept of being a tradwife, because I think the internet did a great job of romanticizing this lifestyle. Oh, you can just stay home and cook and take care of your kids and it's so relaxing, and it's really not. Ironically, people embracing this romanticized depiction of tradwifery minimum labor and hard work that goes into being a mother and being a homemaker, which is actually not very pro-feminist when you think about it. Not that the tradwife thing is pro-feminist at all, it's quite the opposite. Even women who would consider themselves liberal were really downplaying what it meant to be a stay-at-home wife. Ballerina Farm, who was the face of the tradwives on TikTok, I think exposed that in one of her more recent interviews where she talked about all the work she had to do around the home and on her farm and how some days she would just have to lay in bed for days on end because she was so exhausted. And although not every tradwife owns a farm, she has like, what, 8 kids? And that, I mean, having a bunch of kids, cooking from scratch, all this stuff is what is expected of you if you're going to be a tradwife. And so looking at the way TikTok has glamorized this lifestyle and looking at Ballerina Farm and the reality of her life, it really shows you how effective propaganda is, because that's really what it is. It seemed kind of dramatic at first to be like, oh, it's not, this isn't propaganda, but like it is. It's selling women, young women, this lifestyle and making it seem like something that it's not, in order to get them back into this submissive role, this role where they're dependent on men and willingly giving up their freedom and their rights. Like, what people don't understand about the tradwife thing is like legitimate tradwives, and I talk about this in the video, aren't just women who wear dresses around the house and like bake cookies all day. They are right-wing conservative women with very anti-black, very misogynistic, literal traditional values. Or I should say traditional to like the 1950s, because like I also said in that video, it's not really that traditional for women to not work. That was like idea that emerged in the 50s with the rise of the nuclear family post World War. It's like a whole thing. So it's really scary to me that so many women are willingly wanting to give up their rights for this like aestheticized lifestyle, because they don't really see what it's like. Because I mean, listen, if you watch Mad Men, watch that entire show or just the first couple of seasons and come back to me and tell me if you really want to be a tradwife. Because it's not, if you really want to go back to the 1950s, I don't think you would like it very much as a woman. In this post-capitalist world where something like buying a house seems like a luxury only meant for the top 1%, I understand why women want to kind of give up their responsibilities and all the harsh realities of being an adult person in this world and lean on a man to take care of you. I think that's the through line with a lot of these kind of conservative leaning trends, is that, oh, well, life is hard. Well, you're a woman, just find a rich man and all of your worries will go away, which is such an oversimplified and unrealistic solution, if you want to call it that. Because, and it's the same with the stay-at-home girlfriend thing. Like, I don't know if that's still a thing that people are doing, but I remember that was a trend on TikTok for a while where girls would just, you know, play house or be stay-at-home girlfriends and do all the things a stay-at-home wife would do without a ring, which is, you know, interesting. Like, do all the labor, but there's no legal promise or obligation. Sounds like a great idea. The stay-at-home girlfriend thing is like really scary for what I just said. Like, if you want a man to like pay for your lifestyle, I don't have a problem with that, as long as you have your own money tucked away to keep you safe and secure, because you never know when that man is going to leave you, if and when he leaves you, if he dies. Like, there's so many things that could happen. And also, you know, I don't want to make assumptions here, but if you're with a guy who wants you to do that, I would imagine he is maybe the type of guy who expects you to live by his rules and his standards, because he's paying for your lifestyle and paying for you to exist, pretty much. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, I just, as a human being, regardless of gender, but, you know, especially for women, it's really dangerous to depend on another person for your life. It's not a good situation to put yourself in, to be that vulnerable and to let someone have so much power over you that they are in a position to control your life and tell you what to do as like a adult person. I just don't think that's a good idea, but it's been so romanticized online that people are putting themselves into these situations without realizing what could happen. And that's like the perfect manipulative storm to put women back where we were like 50, 100 plus years ago. I just, it gives me the heebie-jeebies. And again, like, all of this kind of aestheticized, glorified internet propaganda makes it look so beautiful. I mean, even look at like the cottagecore thing that happened a little before the tradwife thing, but those all merge together and sell you this fantasy of this prairie living cottagecore trotting in the fields lifestyle. Before you know it, you're stuck with a baby, no job, no savings, nothing to your name, and you're like basically a slave.
If anyone says I didn't know our country was going down a conservative path, I would ask you, have you been on the internet in the past 4 years at all? I'm Lindsay. I talk about fashion trends, fashion history, and culture on here. I'm a former fashion blogger, and I just wrote this piece about how everybody I meet wants to live in the middle of nowhere and other ways that we have been watching conservatism rise. Everything from wellness culture to tradwife content to Dasha and the fixation on Catholic culture, quiet luxury, and our obsession with everything is toxic that we eat. from everyone and their mom having a podcast, to highly stylized traditional values. Hello, it's been happening this whole time. Collectively, what does everything here equal? It equals isolation, it equals self-centeredness, and it equals they are the problem, not you. And what does that mean? When we focus on individualism, that's where the issue is. That's how the conservative rises. With an us versus them mentality, of which I think everything amplifies here. Everything means that on this collage that I wrote about. That is where you can see the culture shift. And I don't mean this to scare you. Culture changes with every generation. It changes with every election, honestly. And there will be many ways that people continue to rebel against this, because these are all nothing new.
That being said, a lot of these trends, like the cottagecore, tradwife thing, along with other trends I'll talk about, center white women, because Black women have always worked. Black women have always had to provide for their family. Like, when you think of the tradwife, I mean, I guess we have Nara Smith, but like, typically the traditional image of this tradwife is not someone who looks like me, okay? Moving on from the more obvious trends that kind of point towards conservatism, I also wanted to talk about the clean girl, because I think that's also something that signals a idealization of conformity and purity, or like this puritanical culture that we are leaning towards. Conformity in how you dress. Someone on TikTok referred to it as aesthetic blandness, the slick back bun and the minimalist jewelry. You could even say it embraces conformity in terms of the body, having a disciplined exercise regime that allows you to maintain a certain weight or a shape. We all know that the clean girl aesthetic isn't super inclusive when it comes to things like that. And it's not inclusive when it comes to race either. I mean, when you search the clean girl aesthetic on Pinterest, we see the same type of woman over and over again. And you could even apply this to the quiet luxury trend. I mean, when you think of quiet luxury, what do you think of? Like neutral tones, things that are luxurious but subdued and not too flashy or obvious to give off this illusion that you come from old money.
Fashion is political, okay? I actually think the signs of a Trump win have been written on the walls for months. If you think about current trends and what is trending in the mainstream, quiet luxury, tradwife, these like hyper feminine ideals, a lot of it's about conformity. This has been going strong for about 2.5 years now. I exist in a very specific fashion bubble. Everyone around me wears Rick Owens, Andy Muehlmeister. Now Scout Dixon West also wears Andy Muehlmeister, so I'm not saying that Andy is like an indicator that you're a leftist, but typically people who are on the left are a little bit more invested in personal style and authentic expression of self. The conformity on this app and in the fashion industry over the last 2 years is extremely indicative of a return to conservatism. And honestly, shame on us for not knowing. Shame on us for not being able to see the signs. I'm not gonna lie, I was surprised because I live in a bubble. But when I was thinking holistically about the industry as a whole, think about Celine, think about this return to Americana, Ralph Lauren's trending again, people wearing polo bags, little lady jackets. It's so much greater than like red is trending for fall, brown suede is trending for fall. There is a value system associated with that aesthetic. We are returning to that aesthetic because we have returned to that value system.
I think it's very interesting and telling that normal people so desperately want to cosplay as wealthy. And I feel like, if you don't have to play the games of the top 1%, why subject yourself to that anyways? Like, if you're gonna be broke, if you're gonna be poor, why not wear some damn color? It'd probably bring you some joy in your life rather than trying so hard to fit into a community that you are not a part of. It feels like this kind of sick form of mind control in a way. And I don't think I'm like even crazy or like tinfoil hat like for saying that. The presence of color and vibrance does boost morale, and if we turn into a society that only wears neutrals, only wears black because we think that aligns us to the wealthy, I'm not really sure what the end goal is here. I think is a great way to like control a society, or it's like one piece of that control, if that makes sense.
This is going to be a rant about color because I saw this Instagram post earlier and I just can't stop thinking about it. Let me move so that you can see this graph of color disappearing from the world. There aren't as many colorful cars on the roads, and home design is trending towards these gray interiors. Home features like carpets are gray, cabinets are always white. And outside of the home, big businesses are losing their recognizable looks as they streamline towards this minimalist style. We're losing individuality and culture from design. When you think about beautiful neighborhoods in America, you think about areas like Georgetown and Charleston because they have a lot of color in them, which generates visual interest. This part talks about how things are mass-produced to be easily consumed. And I want to talk more about this mass consumption and minimalism. Look at these logos versus these logos. The fashion industry is also part of this minimalist mass consumption. Hopefully brands will eventually get back to their individual designs and senses of style, and a big part of that is going back to using color.
Anyways, going back to what I was saying about like the tradwife stuff, I think women want to resort back to relying on men because life is hard, which I understand and relate to and empathize with. And I also think that's a piece of what Emmeline Klein would call dissociative feminism. She has a really amazing article where she breaks this down and talks about different archetypes and TV shows, and I think what she has to say really applies to a lot of the trends that that we've been seeing online lately. I've noticed a lot of brilliant women giving up on shouting and complaining and instead taking on a darkly comic deadpan tone when writing about their feminism. This approach presents overtly horrifying facts about uniquely feminine struggles and delivers them flatly, dripping with sarcasm. Maybe it's a curdling of the hyper-optimistic hashtag girlboss, run the world girls, feminism of the aughts, characterized by an uneasy combination of plaintive, begging and swaggering confidence that gender equality was just past the horizon line. But Sex and the City and Cosmo tutorials on how to come didn't make much of a crack in the bell jar. So instead, we now seem to be interiorizing our existential aches and angst, smirking knowingly at them and numbing ourselves to maintain our nonchalance. Let's call it dissociative feminism. And she talks about the rise of archetypes like Fleabag and how, in a way, it's kind of this representation of the cool girl. Fleabag's depressed and she's self-loathing and she drinks too much, but she never complains about the system in which she lives under, but turns that angst and pain and anger onto herself and blames herself because she's just so horrible and and probably deserves to suffer. She compares Fleabag to the character Hannah Horvath of Girls, who does a lot of the same destructive behaviors, but outwardly expresses her distaste and her anguish. She complains a lot. She's annoying. She's very upfront and open about her turmoil, which isn't very cool girl of her and marks her one of the most hated female characters in all of television. While Fleabag and Hannah both get up and around, Fleabag would never blame society for her specifically female emotional trauma. Instead, she blames herself and makes a joke about it, which is much easier for the viewing public to swallow. So when I think about dissociative feminism, it actually makes me think of like the whole bimbo core trend and the like girl trends, which I made a whole video about. I think it's like the girlification of online trends or something like that. The whole girl dinner thing or girl math. Like we have willingly self-infantilized ourselves to dissociate from the painful reality of being a woman in this world. The bimbo thing, all of this falls under the umbrella of reclamation. Like, oh, I'm reclaiming bimbo. I'm reclaiming this idea that women love to shop and are materialistic and vapid because it feels like liberation. It feels like you're taking the power back. And I see that perspective, but unfortunately, it's not as simple as just saying the word and like sarcastically proclaiming it on TikTok because I am of the belief that if you say something enough, you start to believe it. And no, women actually do have more interests outside of shopping and listening to teen pop. There's nothing wrong with those things. And I think that's also a point that these trends are trying to make is taking away the shame of traditionally feminine interests, which I think has been done effectively, but at the end of the day, like, I don't think it's productive or progressive to be like, yeah, I'm just a bimbo. You know what I mean? I know there may be more layers to it. I never really dug deep into the bimbo thing because I just on the surface was like, that doesn't seem like it's for me. When you think of a bimbo, you think of like a tan, blonde, white girl who wears Juicy Couture tracksuits, and I just don't identify with that, which could also be a part of the problem, right? Is like similar to the tradwife thing, it centers white women, and what a privilege it is to just be able to throw your hands up and be like, I give up, I don't care, I'm dissociating, I've lobotomized myself, or I want to lobotomize myself. No one's giving themselves lobotomies, but you know what I mean. And I'm just gonna like give up and be a bimbo and like call it feminism when it's really not. Infantilizing yourself to escape reality sounds cute and fun, but what about the rest of us? What about the rest of us? Because, unfortunately, not every woman in this country has the privilege to do that, whether they want to or not. I can dissociate all I want, but like the oppression persists whether I like it or not, and I still have to deal with the consequences of that, and that sucks. There's only a point to where it can be so ironic and tongue-in-cheek, where it just becomes reality and we have disassociated long enough that we wake up one day and our rights have been stripped away from us. Then what, Like, the girl math thing is cute until you realize you are broke and have no money, and you've spent all your hard-earned cash on frivolous things that you don't need, and now you have to rely on a man to pay your bills, and we're just right back where we started. Do you know what I'm trying to get at here? It's like, I think, yes, you should be able to buy things that you like, give yourself permission to do that without immense shame, but also we still need to be like responsible adults that make good choices that allow us to be autonomous human beings. I think we've maybe taken some things for granted as women. We don't realize how dark things could really get. And I think this post really articulates this idea perfectly. Gen Z has to reckon with its radicalization problem. You are not only a morally pure and superior generation of youth come to save the world. Your men and boys are radicalized at an unprecedented level, and you ignore it because it's too hard to address, but you have to. These boys are in your classes, they date your friends, you know them, and you cannot continue to pretend this is an old white guy problem. Girls are contributing too. The coquette aesthetic, the I don't want a girl boss, I want a man to pay my bills, girl math, girl job, girl money. It's a joke. It's clothes. It's whatever. I get it, but it is driving a mentality of traditional gender roles, and you know you're joking, but your boyfriend doesn't. Your kid brother doesn't. You have to stop this shit. It is a contributing factor. I never really found it personally empowering to pretend or lean into this stereotype of being dumb and ditzy and not being able to do math or save money or only be interested in shopping and painting my nails. Again, none of those things are bad, but I don't think as women we should embrace that stereotype and just stop at, oh, I'm just reclaiming it. There can be a bigger picture of, yes, I like doing these girly things, and also I have a brain. And I want to teach other women to embrace and hold on to their power and never give it up, no matter what, no matter how shiny the other side looks of being a housewife or something.
If there's anything that this whole Skinnygate taught anyone, I hope it is that you now know that you cannot beauty yourself out of life being hard. Becoming quiet luxury, becoming elegant, becoming soft girl, becoming all of these TikTok phrases is not going to suddenly mean that there's no work in your life. Like, you're still going to have problems and life is still going to be hard. And that's okay. You can do hard things. You can do hard things, babe. And that's why I'm concerned about a lot of this rhetoric, because I am starting to believe that women are thinking it's literally like a status symbol to have no power and to have no agency over your own life. Like, that's not a flex. That's not good. I remember a while back, there was a trend about men taking care of everything and how the woman could turn off their brain when they're around their man. And yeah, that's a feeling I like. That's a feeling that I want to foster in my relationship to a certain extent. Because I remember there was this one post during the trend where this woman was saying, yeah, my man takes care of everything. I don't even know who our mortgage provider is. I was like, what if he gets sick? Or what if he hasn't been paying your mortgage and one day you just come home with a foreclosure and you don't even know? Like, you need to know what's going on in your life. And it's not a flex to just be completely checked out from all of the inner workings in your life because you're so soft and dainty. Please be serious.
As someone who looks so closely at these trends and reports on them and talks about them all the time, even I've kind of been like, yeah, the signs were there the whole time and I never realized it. Or I think I had moments of being like, oh, that's very actually quite conservative. But to see it in this big picture, it's kind of shocking and unnerving. Because I think also what's happened is people lean so far left at circled around to the right in a way. Like when people were saying Gen Z wants less sex scenes in movies, I thought that was really interesting because I think we were so conservative and puritanical as a society in America, and still are, obviously. We were so censored when it comes to media and art. And then we finally started to let up and see more nudity. But then people are like, oh, well, why do women have to be nude all the time and having sex? Like the Sydney Sweeney Euphoria discourse. And so that led us to saying, well, no sex scenes, no nudity, we don't need it. And so in a way, this liberalism has turned into conservatism in a way that maybe we didn't expect. Or how a lot of people in Gen Z were saying, oh no, I'm dating to marry, because people got so fed up with dating culture that I guess it seems like the logical thing to do was to double down on commitment and structure, this traditional path of, you get married and you have kids and you follow this path, this set path. I also think Gen Z has this idea that if you're the most beautiful and you have a partner, you're safe. You're safe from the pain. Gen Z also doesn't party as much. They don't go out, which I've also talked about in a previous video. So what happens when a generation doesn't want to see nudity, wants to stay home, doesn't want to drink, doesn't want to party, doesn't want to have hookups or casual sex? You have a generation of conservatives. I do think that liberalism has created this environment of purity when it comes to socio-political issues. Liberals are very known for kind of eating their own and a lot of infighting, which is not productive at all when it comes to coming together and actually getting done. Conservatives are really great at that. Unfortunately, liberals, we strive for this perfection amongst everyone. And unfortunately, when someone has a different opinion or maybe says something not super eloquently or the way you want it to, they are automatically a covert or a secret conservative, and they need to be ousted and kicked out and canceled and ridiculed. And what that does is it only just pushes people further to the right, because they're like, I can't do anything right on the left. They don't want me here anyway, so I guess I gotta turn to the right. And I just think that's also highly contributed to the rise of conservatism in this generation and culture at large. Tell the Bees has a great commentary on this. He has a couple articles, one about the radicalization of Gen Z, and also he talks about moral purity and how Gen Z has really taken on this puritanical culture when it comes to social issues, like I was just saying. I do think it's all connected. The obsession with purity and punishment, the constant vigilance to keep oneself and others in line in an effort to maintain some imaginary social order. The problem therein is that all nuance is obliterated. There can be no shades of gray when everything is black and white. He also talks about the tactics in which liberals go about this punishment, like doxing is like a really common thing that happens in order to punish people who've maybe said or done something wrong, which seems crazy. The internet has only made this worse because we are in such a constant state of surveillance, and we can now surveil each other and use that as a weapon to get people to, I guess, fall in line. I don't know what the end goal is here, because if you're trying to show someone, oh, this is why your way of thinking is wrong or problematic or hurtful, we're going to now hurt you times 10 to get you to realize the error of your ways. Like, that just doesn't make any sense to me. We've all talked about virtue signaling, but at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's a way for people to make themselves feel better about themselves by pointing the finger at others and being like, you're actually all morally corrupt and horrible and evil. And by pointing that out, that makes me good. Exposing people, canceling people, attacking people isn't activism. You know what I'm saying? In a way, this kind of lacking of forgiveness and a lack of empathy is really what it is. Ironically, this liberal culture of empathy and acceptance for others has only resulted in an extreme lack of empathy for each other, for people who are supposedly on the same team. This lack of empathy is what we accuse conservatives of. We are always talking shit about how conservatives don't care about other people. They lack empathy, which is why they have this intolerance or hatred for people who aren't white, straight, Anglo-Saxons, whatever, which can be very well true, but it doesn't make us any better when we do it to our own like group of people. I have this sneaking suspicion that if a conservative says something that another conservative doesn't necessarily agree with entirely, or maybe says something that isn't perfectly worded with all the flowery language, they're not automatically gonna kick them out of the conservative space. Maybe I'm wrong, and this isn't me like idolizing or putting them on a pedestal, obviously. I just think liberals could have a bit more nuance and forgiveness for each other, and it sucks that it's kind of gotten to this place where it seems like we can't agree on anything, and then it makes you question, like, what does it even mean to be liberal? Like, it seems so disorganized, and it's not enough to want justice and equity for all and to have that in your heart. You have to be very specific and scripted with it. Like, there's no space for like authenticity, it feels like sometimes. Not always, but even now saying that, I'm like, oh my god, people are gonna attack me and like call me a Republican, and that's what I'm trying to touch on, is that feeling of never being right or being good enough and feeling afraid of your own community in a way, and that's only making the opposite side stronger. And I think people are tired of that. People are tired of feeling that way, and so we have this pendulum swing in culture and how we speak. People feel like they are being silenced and they're like being shackled to this PC culture, so now they go online and they say really crazy that maybe they weren't allowed to say a few years ago. I talked about this in my video about thinness and like the whole culture around eating on TikTok. People are just straight up being like, you shouldn't be fat, don't get fat, I want to be skinny, and glamorizing extreme thinness as a almost like rebellion against the body positivity movement. Obviously, like, the spirit of the body positivity movement was a great thing. I think there were some discrepancies or things that didn't sit right with people and still felt exclusionary and judgmental. So now people are like pushing back and being like, this, I'm just gonna say what I want unfiltered, because people haven't had the space to like really be honest. And there's a difference between being honest and just being an asshole, obviously. It's not that I think the body positivity movement dismantled fat phobia or dismantled body ideals. Being thin has always been thin has always been the ideal, but now people can outwardly say, yes, this is the ideal, this is what we should look like. And because for a few years people felt like they couldn't openly discuss that, I guess, or show that desire, now people are just like blurting it out in like really aggressive ways. So yeah, that was my kind of psychotic rambling on the culture. I hope that you got something out of this. Let me know what you think in the comments. Again, this is very conversational, not super researched, not my most organized video, but I don't know, it kind of felt good to like just rant and ramble with y'all today and kind of debrief, because I'm in this with y'all too. We're all in this whirlwind together. So thank you for listening. Thank you again to Milanote for sponsoring today's video, keeping the lights on. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Happy holidays. Bye.